Hello everybody and welcome. This is the Midnight McBride Show and episode 5, and I've called this episode The Happy Chappy. Now if you've listened to my radio show recently, you'll know the Happy Chappy, and this gentleman has been on Salford City Radio with me a few weeks ago and had a lot of positive response and quite a bit of feedback on this particular show, and I've even heard somebody say it's the best show we've ever done. So welcome onto the show, Marcus Chester.
Thank you for having me again, Patrick.
Yes.
No pressure.
Yes, and it's midnight now.
Oh, my word.
Sorry, it doesn't matter.
There's one for the outtakes then.
Yeah.
Hello, Midnight. Thank you for having me.
Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah,
Good. So
good.
I'm delighted to have you on the show, and we'll start with a lot of people who are watching this now, not listening, but watching, so they can see you.
Oh.
A lot of people, maybe some have and some haven't listened to the radio show.
Yeah.
So we'll cover your journey a little bit, and then we'll talk about some of the things that are more current and what we're doing at the minute.
Sounds good.
Right. And as I said on the radio show, and it's been commented a lot, is your voice. You have, and don't take this as I know the joke.
A face for radio.
Yeah, I know they have a face for radio, but your voice, you have a very rich, it's a lovely voice to listen to, very relaxing. You know, if you did write your book, which we're talking about, which we'll talk about after, if you did this and then did an audio book, I think it'd be a bestseller because you've got this very smooth, very nice voice to listen to.
Oh, thank you.
You know, so, and that's not just me. There's a lot of comments about that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So the Happy Chappy. Let's start with that. And
Well, I'll try to be.
I called the show this on the radio as well. I'm using the same title.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah. And it all stems from initially how I came across you was that you post on social media.
That's
Every
right.
Monday morning we'd have a hello everybody and happy Monday, and this post went on, and a little bit of maybe a quote or a little bit of inspiration for Monday. So that was I used to look forward to that. You know,
I need to start doing that again, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think I will. You've inspired me, actually, to restart the Happy Mondays.
Well, I think so, because I don't think quite often when you're doing something good, you know, that's making people happy, putting a smile on somebody's face, you don't really maybe realise the potential or the good it's doing, but I used to look forward to it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Other people have said that as well, and I think I said to you before, I'm not quite sure why I stopped doing it. I think as much as anything else, it was just habit.
Yeah.
I'm still not quite sure why I stopped, but
Yeah.
I think I do need to start again. So I did enjoy putting that sort of message out there about, you know, taking the deliberate step back from yourself and thinking about how we can all be a bit happier and a bit more fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think what I was also trying to do is just talk myself into it sometimes, to be honest. You know, at the start of a working week, Monday morning,
And you get out of bed
sunny
and you're like,
Stockport it was at the
no.
time. That's exactly it.
Monday morning blues.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for just trying to develop that deliberate practice of gratitude, and I think that's really where it stemmed from. Just taking a step back and counting my blessings, as my grandma used to say.
Well, they call it, in The Secret, it's called the attitude of gratitude. And
Exactly.
when you're grateful for what you have and you appreciate everything you have, you attract more of it because you're in a state of grace.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
I've knocked my Buddha over there. But
Right on cue, state of grace, and Buddha goes.
You're in a state of grace, and when you're feeling good, that's what you'll draw into your life. And there's a story in The Secret, which is a book and a film that I read. I think I first read the book or saw the film actually in 2006.
Right.
And there's a guy, and he has what he calls a gratitude rock, and he keeps this in his pocket. And every time he reaches down to grab hold of that rock, it reminds him to be grateful for something as he went through his day. And then he sold these rocks, which were just rocks, but he sold them. He handpicked them out of a riverbed and sold them, and I think he raised about $10,000 for a charity or something by selling rocks.
Wow.
Beautiful story.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go and find a stone as soon as I leave here. I'm going to go and
I
find
had
a
a
rock.
gratitude rock for a long time. So Marcus, ironically, you're sort of a teacher now, which is, again, we'll discuss later in the show. But prior to being a teacher, you went to a lot of schools as a child.
Yeah, I did.
Many different schools.
Yeah, a lot, particularly, at primary school.
Yeah.
I only ever went to one secondary school and one college. But before that, primary schools, Yeah, we moved around quite a bit
Yeah.
with my dad's job. I think I said to you on the radio that left quite a lasting negative impact on my life, really.
Yeah.
To the point where I found it very difficult to make lasting connections with people, to make lasting friendships with people, quite simply because of the practicalities. We'd move.
Yeah. I found that in a similar vein, I became a survival mechanism. I became very good at, if I had to disconnect from people, just to sort of detach the emotions and just crack on. Because if I didn't, then I would be quite low.
Yeah.
You know, because I constantly had to, when we moved around, I had to leave my friends behind. You know?
I can certainly relate to that. Definitely. I think the other thing for me was just simply the fact that I ended up inside my own head an awful lot. I ended up with...
That's a scary place, Marcus.
Yeah, exactly. And it's...
all man's problems stem from his inability to sit quietly in a room on his own.
That's
Blaise
it.
Pascal.
It took me a very long time to learn that lesson. An awful long time, because I literally just spent an awful long time concocting stories in my head about how we'd ended up in this new school and so on and so on, with a new group of friends in a different house. And I suppose that makes it sound like my childhood was really traumatic. And on the one hand, it wasn't. It was a very safe childhood in a very nice, as it was then, part of the world. Very peaceful, the sort of neighbourhood. It was Boston, Lincolnshire, which back in the early 80s, you could certainly leave your front door open. And we did all the time. I know that sounds like a cliche, but we did. So in the one sense, it was a very safe place to live and a very quiet place to live. But on the other hand, moving around all of the time really did leave me with that lasting sense of, I suppose, of trauma. It was traumatic. Moving was traumatic in as much as it deeply upset me every time we did it.
But obviously it's made you the man you are today, you know, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and you grow. But I can relate to that, because obviously we talked about this off air when we did the radio, that I was similar, that I went to a lot of schools when I was younger, and each time you move, you know, you don't want to move, you're just settling in, you're getting comfortable, you're making friends, you're learning who your teachers are, you're getting a little bit of rapport, and then off we go.
Off we go. Yeah, exactly. To the point where I can't even remember the names of the people that I went to school with, or the teachers, or even the names of the schools. Yeah,
that's dementia, Marcus.
It's a sign of advancing years.
Yeah. So, moving on from there, again, we'll shorten your journey a little bit for this show. But then we talked about when you went to college.
Yeah.
And you were studying English, but you used to run and then you became ill.
Yeah, that's right. I ran all the way through secondary school. Joined Bolton Harriers on the recommendation of a PE teacher. It was something that I found I was good at, really. To be honest, and I like the fact, and I still do actually with running, that it's an incredibly solitary thing to do, but it's also a social thing to do at the same time. And I really like that aspect of running and endurance events.
I think sort of 90% of the running I do, 95% of the running I do on my own, and I love it for that reason. But then the 5% I do when I do, say, a GB Ultras event, which I'm doing in a week's time, I love also.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so nice to catch up with everybody, and I'll see Gareth and I'll see Nicola, who are coming on this show as well. You know, they both ultra runners.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
Yeah.
So I did that all the way through secondary school, and when it came to doing A levels, going to college, I basically picked the subjects I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And amongst that was English and also PE.
See, I think that's where our lives differed. I didn't pick the subjects I enjoyed. I went into construction, and I was guided into construction, and I wish I hadn't. I know you shouldn't have regrets. I wouldn't call it a regret, but there are other things that I would have liked to pursue.
Yeah, it was I suppose one of the better decisions, really.
Yeah, because it's creative as well. You express yourself.
Exactly. But that also coincided with a period of time when I was ill. So at the end of what was then the 5th year school and moving into college, I ended up with glandular fever. I didn't know I had that at the time. Ended up in hospital. Ended up having to have an abscess removed because I'd got so run down. So I had to have that removed from my chest. And really, I never really got back into
I just
running
think
in the.
Total Recall. Have you seen Total Recall, the film where he's got this?
Yeah, I
being
have seen
living,
that. Yeah, that's
being
it.
living inside him.
I wish you'd have warned me actually, because when I didn't know it was so deep. So when they removed the packing, it was all packed out,
Yeah.
and I looked down, and I could actually see my sternum. Thought, oh my word, yeah, I nearly fainted. So obviously I had all of that to deal with, and to be honest with you, by that point I just had enough of running. Really,
Yeah.
it got to the point where I thought that's it.
It's funny. I think all stress and mind-created things, if it's not dealt with in the right manner, it manifests into a physical entity, and you become ill. You get you can get a disease, or you can be run down, and so there'll be a reason for that happening. And there might have been other things going on in your life. And ironically, the one thing you need two things you need when you're running are your legs and your lungs, and it came out your chest. So
Yeah,
who knows what messages are there?
No, that's it. Who knows? Who knows? But the only sort of message I heard in my own head at the time, well, running's no use. So for some ridiculous reason, I thought, well, if I can't run, I might as well smoke. I might as well go drinking instead.
But I can relate to that. If I'm on a strict diet, which I frequently am, and I don't mean strict as in necessarily quantity of food, just what I eat, try and eat healthy.
Yeah.
If I go off script on a Monday, I think, well, there's no point now. I've had a cake. It's all over.
Yeah.
And the week goes out, and the same, I think, if you can't run at all, then you can go the opposite way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think like that anymore. It took me a long time to learn that lesson, but certainly when I was 17, 18, and when I went off to university, that was it.
Yeah.
It was all bets off, and I don't remember running at all, really, from that point on. I do remember doing a lot of things that weren't particularly very good for me.
Yeah. So then you started, you're into drinking, which everybody does at college anyway. I mean, it's, you go through that period, and smoking, And that unhealthy pattern carried on for quite a long time after.
Yeah, it did carry on for a long time afterwards. I ate a lot as well.
Yeah, because if the viewers at home hadn't seen pictures of you, and I'm sure if they look hard enough, they'll find one on social media, but you've got a picture of yourself sort of, I'd say, 5-7 years ago, maybe something like that?
Possibly a bit longer.
Oh, a bit longer.
Yeah, a bit longer than that, yeah.
And you're twice the size.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, maybe not quite twice, but yeah, I was getting on for that way. And in fact, it's only when I look back, there's very few photographs actually from that point in time.
Yeah. Well, I
used to hide.
Yeah, when you don't feel good, you don't really want to record that.
No.
In any way.
No, I certainly wouldn't have been doing this.
No.
Absolutely not.
We were talking off air before, and I think I explained to people that even though I was ill last year, I carried on with the radio. It was one of the very few things I could still do. And it was therapy for me. It helped me. So each time we have this chat, and I do, say, a show here or a show on the radio, somebody comes on and we talk about their life, but I relate to it. I talk about my life. And it is therapy for me. I benefit from doing my health, and my mental health benefits from doing the radio and the show.
Absolutely.
Sharing, talking and sharing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's an absolutely crucial message there for anybody that's struggling with anything.
Yeah, watch my show.
Yeah, that's it. Watch the show and speak to somebody.
Yeah, talk.
Whatever it is that you're trying to overcome or accomplish, you just can't do it on your own. And I think that's one of the big sort of things about the sort of journey that I've been on. Really, it took me a long time to realise that, despite having a lot of advantages. So going to college, going to university, staying on at university. I didn't leave as soon as I could. I stayed on as long as I could. But despite all of that, I still ended up in the mess that I was in. My best thinking had got myself into that position. Yeah. And I realised I needed to reach out and to speak to other people about how they'd got themselves out of those unhelpful patterns of thinking.
I think for most people, the start of the healing process, where the pivotal point where you turn around, is when you reach out for help and say, I'm struggling, I need help. How did you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
And from there, which is what you're doing, because people inspired you, and you're doing the same now, because people will understand why when we continue with this conversation. But you're now inspiring people and saying, I was struggling, I was depressed, I drank, I smoked, I was unhealthy, I had other problems, and I've turned my life around, and these are some of the ways you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully. That's certainly one of the ways in which I try and approach everything. You've got to give it away, haven't you?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to keep, in one sense, you do have to try and pass it on and give it away. if you want to keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
So helping somebody else. I mean, there was somebody a couple of years ago that I tried to help, and he kept thanking me, and I was like, I'm actually doing it for my.
You're benefiting from it.
I'm doing it for myself.
You're benefiting from it. They say, I say, everything in a stagnant pond dies, and life, energy, blood, chi, call it what you like, but things need to flow through you.
Exactly.
You're a vessel, and if you stem the flow with anything in your body, and tension does that. If you have tension in the system, if you don't get that tension out, everything becomes rigid, things stop flowing, and you become ill. And it's the same with money. If you have money and you just hoard it and keep it, you're not going to attract more of it to you. You need to give it and spend it. And I don't mean throw it away in materialistic stuff. What I mean is circulate. If you're prosperous, then, you know, enjoy that by all means, but help other people.
Help others, yeah. Try and give it away a bit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what would you say, Marcus? Would it be when you started to talk about your issues and problems, was that the turning point for you?
That was partly the turning point. Like anything else, it was having children really that really crystallised the idea that I had to change.
When you see that the consequences of your choices and actions affect other people.
Yeah, and it wasn't a sudden thing. So when my daughter was born, it wasn't like a light bulb moment for change. Initially, it didn't happen straight away, but I became very, very aware that I've had a responsibility towards somebody else for the first time ever, really.
And in life, the best way to teach anybody anything is by example.
Exactly. And I realised that was not setting a great example for her at all. So then I did, in fact, the year that she was born, she was born in August, and the year after I'd got fit enough to be able to run a marathon. But I was only sort of halfway into it at that point.
Yeah.
I didn't view myself as being a runner. I didn't view myself as being healthy. I was just literally going through the motions. But it was the starting point.
Yeah. You and I both know that, and the guests on the show, Chris Reddy's been on the radio, he's coming on here. Gareth Kilshaw and also Nicola Bruce have been on the show. They're coming on here. Yourself.
Brilliant.
I've had a few other people, and running seems to be a common theme for a lot of people, and it's a part of the recovery, helping for mental health and physical health.
Exactly, yeah. And it really did. And I think one of the things that training for that first marathon, I was absolutely out of my comfort zone, completely. But I felt at peace. I felt very ill actually after that first one. It was a Windermere Marathon. I felt really ill when I finished, but I did feel this strange sense of peace, and I think there was a certain willingness there to change. It didn't happen straight away. It took another good few years, to be honest. I think she was 4 before I really grasped hold of everything, and by that point, of course, it had just got worse. I was in complete denial, really, about how sort of depressed I was. And how I was using all of these maladaptive ways of coping with that. I mean, I was a walking cliche. I was burying myself in work. I was working as much
I've done that.
and as hard as I possibly could, purely as a way of distracting myself.
I've worked till failure, where I've done it on several occasions, where I've worked to the point where I collapse.
Yeah.
You know,
I can certainly relate to that sort of mental collapse. And the very odd thing was, and the very bewildering thing was, the fact that the harder I worked externally, the more successful I seemed to be.
Yeah. But the more discord and out of alignment your actions and your inner emotional state was.
Exactly. And that's precisely it. And that caused a great deal of confusion. I thought, how on earth can I feel like this? And yet here I am climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
And externally, people are sort of looking up to me as an example. And I knew inside I was just absolutely shambolic. Absolutely shambolic.
Ironically, by sharing your story and saying, actually, I was struggling, I wasn't happy, and showing that, you know, you were broken at the time, because we're all broken, and his Hemingway says that's where the light gets in, and Rumi has a similar quote, you know, the cracks are where the light gets in. But by showing your vulnerability, that's the proper example when you say, actually, I'm not okay, and it's okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That we're all struggling.
That's it. And that was a big realisation for me. that all came to a point, and I just literally thought, I cannot live like this anymore.
Yeah.
I do not want to live like this anymore. There must be a better way.
Maybe give your kids a shout out now as well, because we discussed them. What are your kids called?
Amelia,
Yes.
and Matthew.
Amelia and Matthew.
Hello, Amelia and Matthew. I think I will look at the camera.
Yeah, you can look
Give
at the
them a
camera.
little
now,
wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With running, I'm using running as an example, but we can achieve a meditative state. And I know if I do any endurance sport, and I do it for a long period, especially if I'm in nature, after the first hour or so and I settle in and I get a sustainable rhythm, I'm in bliss. I'm just in bliss because all the problems I have disappear. I focus on my breath. And you also now, you've been through this process and done running and stuff, but now you meditate.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I try.
Yeah.
I try not to judge it because I still think I'm not particularly
Oh,
good
you'll
at
be
it.
in trouble.
Oh, no, that's it. That's it. And it's not something that comes easily or naturally. I have to have reminders. In fact, I've got one on my phone that reminds, on my phone and my watch and so on, that reminds me to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's only for a couple of minutes. And it's literally that I'm certainly no expert at it. It's just focusing on the breath. And I do find that it does genuinely help to just bring things down and not sure to.
A big part of it is developing a regular practice, and that's whatever works for you. But if you meditate, you can have cumulative or reactive. And if you meditate, where you have a situation, you're stressed, and then you react to that situation by meditating, you will benefit and it will help. And it'll bring you from highly stressed, so in a +10, down to a +5. If you have a cumulative practice where you meditate every day and every night and develop inner peace so that you become more relaxed and more relaxed, more relaxed, then when you're stressed, then you go from -10 to -5, but you're always in the minus range, the peaceful range. And that only comes with a regular meditation
That's
practice.
the aspiration. Not quite there yet.
No, well, I mean, it is
I'm
an
still at
aspiration.
+15.
Yeah. I can have periods in my life where I've been very peaceful, and I've had months where I've done a lot of retreats and I've been floating around. And then I have other periods when I've been setting this studio up and getting this up and running, where...
Which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you. I love what I'm doing, but I've become almost obsessed with what I'm doing, and I'm just focused and I am on it, you know. But if it's something I'm passionate about, there's a difference between being like that with something you're not enjoying and which is making you ill. I'm something you're passionate about because it's not like work. I am just doing what I love, you know,
exactly.
and I love doing this.
Having a chat.
Yes.
There's more than just having a chat, though. I'm sort of looking around. This really is very high tech.
Good. Well,
it's brilliant.
I'm very happy about that.
Yeah,
good.
good.
There's a lot of work gone into it. We try and make it look effortless and simple, but it's a lot of
well,
work
I
gone
did
into
realise that when I came on the radio show.
Yeah.
I thought you just make it seem very, very easy, but I was looking at what you were doing.
I've had 70 goes at it, that's why.
I thought it certainly isn't. There's far too much here that could go wrong.
Yeah, well, it's just well practiced, well rehearsed, and I obviously have a lot of help. Well, a lot of help. Willow helps me. So if I'm in studio, I need somebody outside the studio helping organise with the guests and things. So I do have help.
Yeah, she made me feel very welcome. Hello, Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she certainly did.
So, Marcus, we're coming towards the first part of the show. It's over, and we're going to have a little break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back after this.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Midnight McBride Show, and this is part 2, episode 5, The Happy Chappy, and I'm joined by Mr. Marcus Chester.
Hello, Midnight. Still here.
Yeah. So, Marcus, we've talked about your life journey up to sort of we're here. I'll quickly just talk about smoking and drinking, because I know what's quite unusual is, for me anyway, nearly everybody, what they do is they stop drinking first and then stop smoking while they're not drinking. And because I had several attempts at stopping to smoke, and every time I tried, as soon as I had a pint of alcohol, no willpower, and I started smoking again. And you did it the other way. You stopped smoking
the other way
first,
around,
but still drank.
Yeah.
That must require, some metal.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure why it happened in that order. I know when my daughter was born, when Amelia was born, like I said, I started training for that marathon. Well, I say training. I just didn't really know what to do, so I just went out running. And smoking certainly doesn't help with that.
I remember I did a triathlon. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Marcus. And when I did my first few triathlons, I was still smoking. And somebody looked round and I was hid behind my car when I'd just done a triathlon and I was having a cigarette behind the car. They just looked down at me and shook their head and went, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it was completely counterproductive.
Yeah, of course
I was trying to get healthy in one respect, but still putting all the poisons in my body. That was a wake-up call for me. I thought, I must... What am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, and that's for me was smoking had to go. But
exactly. So I think that was certainly part of it. I just think I enjoyed drinking more. It's as simple as that. So I kept hold of that one. I think that was it.
Yeah. I think for me as well, if I drank, I felt terrible the next day. If I smoked, although long term it was doing a lot of harm, I didn't. And that I used to have some terrible hangovers. Were really low, depressed, proper dip when I'd been drinking, and that had to go for me. You know, that up and down. I needed a little bit of.
Yeah, that's it. I can certainly relate to that as well. And that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was in that order. I think it was about 20. It must be 2012 the last time I had a cigarette. Yeah, that was it.
So we'll touch on now. We're in the present moment, so we've arrived. We've covered your journey a bit, not as much detail as we've done on the radio, but people sort of know what you're about. So you're a teacher, Marcus, and you teach English.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your posts, and you're a big fan of literature.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the post you did very recently, we won't go too much into the specifics of the event, but obviously Caroline Flack passed away. And you did a post about Love Island. And I don't know if you noticed, but Willow shared it. I read it and liked it. And it was very well written and very poignant about how you can say, you know, it's terrible what's happened, but then still watch Love Island. And if in doing so, you're part of that problem. You're part of the machine, aren't you? You're a viewer. I've never seen Love Island, but it's never appealed to me at all.
No, it's never appealed to me. And I actually avoided using the name of the show.
I know you didn't put it in.
Yeah, I didn't put it in.
I was thinking, which show is it?
Yeah.
And I didn't know about Caroline Flack. Then I saw the headline, and then I saw somebody put a comment, I think asked you.
Yeah, that's
and only
right.
at that point, because I didn't know which show it was. But
I think the general point is that if we go back to some of the things that I used to do.
You didn't actually mention Caroline Flack or Love Island, but I think that was what drove it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the general point was that I think we always need to be mindful about what we're taking in. So whether it's eating 2 pizzas of an evening, like I used to do sometimes, or drinking or smoking or whatever it is. And the same goes for what we consume culturally, I think. What we choose to listen to, what we choose to read, what we choose to watch can have a profound impact on our own well-being. But then the other sort of general point is, I think sometimes people don't fully, I'm certainly not claiming to, fully understand the impact of their actions, and that they do have a repercussion over time. And taking that one particular incident, you can't, I think, point to the bad people over there. In that case, it might have been the tabloid press, for example, and say it's the fault of the tabloid press, when in fact the tabloid press are just a reflection of other people. You know, we are all part of it, and you can't choose to blame a certain section of culture or society as if you're somehow separate from it, and still consume the very same program that's led to that. And I just found that in that particular case, it seems quite horrific, really, that I think is the third death or suicide that somehow, I'm not saying that it's, certainly not saying for a second that it's caused that, but it certainly is part of the same system.
Yeah. Well, I think there's been Sophie Graddon and Sophie Graddon's boyfriend, I think, and then another guy off the show, and now Caroline Flack. So there's been a few connected with the show. Yeah. I think what we need to remember is that every time when I move my hand like this, everything we do has ripples in the universe. Every action you take has a consequence you know, a cause and a consequence as well. And yeah, with you having children, you became aware of it then. But everything we do has an effect. Yeah. And also, there's a quote in my book, and it says, "To be told something once is to be informed. To be told something again and again is to be conditioned. You are now being programmed." You have to be very careful about the seeds you plant in the garden that is your mind. Whatever you put in there, be very careful, because it will perpetuate. Everything you focus on, you feed and move towards it. Another quote from my book. Everything you focus on, you feed and move towards it. So you have to be very careful and consciously choose about what you give your attention and your energy to.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. That's what I should have. That should have just been my post. Yeah, just be careful about what you're giving your attention to. And I'm not for 1 second proclaiming to be any sort of expert or to get it right all of the time. It just seemed a very curious thing that there's a lot of people, you know, quite rightly saddened by such an event, but yet still consume one of the sorts of products, if you like, of a culture that in somehow has somehow led to that.
Yeah.
It just seems a very sad state of affairs, really.
Yeah. So, Bolton Marathon. We've got a new marathon coming up. It's been a long time, and I said on the
let's talk about something positive.
Yeah. I talked about, I mean, obviously I brought that up. With every show, I like to have humour as well, but I also like to talk about serious things, you know. You know that I went running with Sam's Warriors, and they did a Couch to 5K, and I went sort of supporting a bit. And the guy who won the last Bolton Marathon, Nigel, came to support as well, which is very nice. Yeah. And he's the reigning champion 30 years ago, thereabouts.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was
I've
going to
got a funny story to tell you about him.
Go
at
for
some
it.
point.
Go for it.
At some
This
point.
is a good time.
Yeah. Well, when I was talking about running as a kid, I got a Saturday job, and it was a shop on Chorley Old Road called BT Running Sports. And it was owned by a guy called Tony Leonard, who's still involved in the world of running.
Yeah.
One day we went. It was a Sunday. Tony said, "Do you want to work for me on a Sunday? We'll be in the van." Fine. So off we went. We turned up at a race. And we were just selling stuff from the stock from the back of the van. Nigel Barlow turned up and said, "Could you look after my bag while I'm running?" So we did, and we sold as much stuff as we could. I think it was a 10-mile.
You didn't sell his stuff, did you?
No, we didn't. The race set off, and we then packed up everything back into the van and moved on to another event, another race. Forgot his kit was in the back of the van. And of course, this is in the days long before mobile phones or anything else. So I still feel a bit guilty about the fact that he'd have absolutely legged it round this 10-miler and won it, no doubt, in a ridiculous time. Got to the finish line, and of course, all of his dry kit was in the back of our van. Yeah.
Nigel, if you're watching, Marcus is here. I'll give you his number.
I was responsible. Well, it wasn't me. I couldn't drive at that point.
No. I didn't think I was going to be able to do the Bolton Marathon because I went through the schedule and it was a couple of weeks before the first 100 mile of the Chester 100. However, it's 2 weeks before, and I think that's a very good time to chuck in a marathon. So I'm going to do it.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I'm going to do it.
It's going to be a really good event. I've been training on the course an awful lot.
I've done little sections of it. Yeah.
So it's tough. It's hilly. In fact, talk about the Windermere Marathon. I think it's got 200 feet extra total elevation, more than the Windermere Marathon.
What is the elevation on it? Do you know?
1,800 feet.
Right.
For Bolton. So it's a challenging. It's perfectly runnable. It's a great course. It really is. But it's challenging. It's something good for the town. It's become quite a nice focal point for a lot of.
I remember being
groups.
a kid, and it was a big deal. You know, a really big deal. But the marathon's a couple of weeks before, so I'm pretty sure I can do that now, which I'm really happy about because I want to.
Yeah,
you know.
Good.
And I've done Bolton Triathlon Club, although I don't do triathlon anymore. I have been doing some runs with them on Saturday morning with Craig Platt, so a big shout out to Craig Platt. And he's been breaking it up, and they have done sections of it. You know, 6 miles, 10 miles, 6 miles, breaking it up. Yeah, so, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Fantastic. Yeah. It's been running has completely and utterly been one of the central planks of feeling better. It really genuinely has. It's not the only thing I've done, but it's certainly one of the things that each day I make a conscious effort to build in some time.
Yeah.
That I can get out, go for a run.
My preparation, I've got the Chester 50 coming up next Saturday, and my preparation should be very different than what it's been. I've only done maybe 2 runs a week, 3 runs a week at the most.
Right.
The biggest run I've done 16 miles, so I'm way off. However, I'm hoping still to do that next week, assuming I can be back on time on the Friday. But last year, what I was doing, I got it wrong last year, I was doing it the other way. 7 days before, I'd go and run the course. So if I did a 50 miler, I'd run 50 mile the Sunday before. I did it 3 times. And I still got round, but I wasn't in great shape. So I overdid it last year. This year I've not had as much time to train. So
there you go. This is the difficulty, isn't it? It's just finding that elusive balance in everything that we do.
Yeah,
that's crucial.
So the radio show, when you came in to do the radio, Marcus, and I said we had a lot of positive response from that. A lot of people, I don't know whether you know a lot of people or whether it's your voice. I'm not sure, but we had a lot of positive response from that. When you came, Stu and Anne from the radio actually grabbed hold of you and dragged you into the show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, did you ever listen to that?
I did listen to that.
Good. I listened to it as soon as I left the studio.
Yeah,
I got in the car.
There's a little link on the website.
Yeah, I got to the website, listened to the last 3 shows. I went on their show, and so I listened to you in the car on the way. It's a great thing that, because any show I want to listen to, I can put it on Bluetooth and listen to it in the car. So it's great. But I listened to that, and you were a bit shell shocked. It was fun.
I was. It was literally
good.
just dragged in, answered.
And we had, let me think, Howard firing questions at you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because you weren't prepared, obviously.
No.
Yeah, well, that's live radio for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it was good. Enjoyed it.
On the show, Marcus, you told me about the fact that you're writing a book. Now, the next show I'm doing, show number 6, is with a lady called Stina Marie, and she has written 3 books in 12 months, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Try and say that. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I talked to her about it, and she's just prolific. But her first book is a book she wrote. The other 2 books are compilations of different authors who have written to be part of this group and her movement in this book.
Yeah.
But still, to put that together is incredible.
That's some output in 12 months. Yeah.
So tell us, Marcus, a little bit about your book.
Well, anybody that's listening to the radio show or is watching this, if you're still here, hello, you probably might have the idea that things sound a little bit bitty. And that sort of my experiences are a little bit sort of disjointed. And in my own head, they were a bit disjointed, really.
Yeah.
So it was a conscious effort. I started about 12 months ago, a conscious effort just to try and put events in order as a way of me sort of just working my way through these and remembering different bits.
Yeah, it's therapy as well. It's cathartic, isn't it?
A bit of therapy. And as I started writing it, there were some things that I started to think, actually, other people might benefit a little bit from this, because I am sure that other people have got to points in their life where they've thought, literally, what's the point? Why are we here? And so on and so on. And I'm not professing to answer any of those big questions. I'm just saying this is how I found my way through what to me were a very confusing and bewildering set of circumstances.
Yeah.
How did I, for example, recover in a sense from feeling very depressed?
Yeah.
So that's what I started to write about. If it helps a couple of people to make that first step towards approaching their GP and explaining things, fantastic. If it helps people to realise that actually some of the things that they're doing aren't necessarily the problem. One of the things I realised over the last few years, and when I started writing, was the fact that alcohol and smoking and pizzas and everything else, they aren't the problem.
No.
The problem is myself, and the problem was what was going on inside my own head. So I started writing that. Of course, one of the problems of having a background in English and in literature is I'm constantly comparing what I'm writing to what I know to be good examples of writing, and that's a huge barrier. It's not helpful. I really think it isn't helpful if you want to be a writer to have studied English. I think you'd be better off. I genuinely mean that. I think you'd be better off studying history or something.
Yeah.
So I've got that barrier to get over. I'm still at the stage. I've written about 90,000 words, so I've got a lot now.
Yeah.
It's just trying to find the through line. It is going to be something that has the through line of running. So running will be literally one of the things that I write about, but also a metaphor.
Yeah. That's a lot. My book, the first book, From Pills to Peace, I think that's about 60,000 words.
Yeah.
You know, so you're into the realm of 500 pages there.
Yeah,
with what
that's
you've
it.
got.
So it's going to need an awful lot of editing.
Yeah.
And I just need to now go back to the beginning, really, and start to impose more of an order on it and get it into that sort of shape before editing.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I struggle. Well, I can't basically write a book while I'm in this environment doing my everyday life. I have to be secluded for a little while, or put that time aside and at least get the bulk done. And you've done it whilst you're working and in small pieces.
Yeah,
I need
it.
big blocks, and it's difficult.
It is difficult. Obviously, teaching is a demanding job.
Yeah.
It takes up an awful lot of time. It's a fantastic job, but it takes up a huge amount of time. Then there's family time, then there's running and everything else. I think technology's helped.
Yeah.
So that would be one sort of tip. You know, you can pretty much pick up any device and carry on with whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's helped an awful lot.
And you can narrate now as well.
Yeah.
You know, which I'm sort of getting into now, where I'm trying to narrate rather than type, because it speeds up the process massively.
Yeah, it does. It does. In fact, some of those 90,000 words have literally been, I don't actually do it anymore, but where I've had my phone with me and I've been running.
Yeah.
And I've literally just been saying what I've been thinking about, and then editing it afterwards. I'm
too cool for school. I permanently and constantly have a dictaphone with me.
Right.
And I think I look like, what's the character that on the radio, Alan Partridge? He always used to have a dictaphone with him.
Oh, no, yeah.
I have a dictaphone with me because once I start thinking about something, and I go, and I have to catch it there and then, you know. Well,
I think you do. I think that's a good tip for anybody that wants to be creative. You can't rely on your memory to remember it. I've written so many what I think are fantastic lines in my head, not written them down, and 10 minutes later I can't remember them.
Because you've got to not just remember the words, you've got to remember the feeling, that inspiration, how you felt at the time of thinking it, to recall it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I dictaphone is the way for me. That helps a lot. And it's even got a USB thing on, so I can get my dictaphone, record a load of stuff, stick it in my computer.
Right.
I can import all the audio recordings into the computer. So that helped me.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think all of these things, you know, they're really useful for anybody wanting to create anything.
Have you got a title yet?
No, I haven't. Yeah.
Okay, that's a fun bit, and the cover as well is a fun bit. Yeah. But some people think you should just plaster your face on it. I haven't gone down that route with the ones I've done, but you know, that's something to consider.
Yeah, it is something to consider. Probably a way off that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to getting it finished, because it's been an ambition of mine for quite a long time.
Once you've got the bulk of it done, I thought the hard work had been done, but there's a lot in the printing, the editing, the cover, the blurb, and all the rest of it, and the production and stuff. So there is still a lot of work to do, but a lot of that's fun. Some of that's fun, you know.
Yeah.
So
but I have been looking into it. I've been looking into different ways of actually producing the thing. So I'm pretty confident of how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So it's literally carving out that time away from some of those other things that I've just been talking about to get it finished, really.
Yeah. Which school do you teach at, Marcus?
St Catherine's Academy in Bolton.
Right.
Yeah, so
is that Harwood? Have I got that right?
It is, yeah. It's Stitch Me Lane.
That's the big, right, because if I go running and I'm up in the hills, it's one of the few schools you can just see it.
Yeah, you will be able to see it.
It's huge, isn't it? And very clear.
It is. It's a large site. We share the site with Firwood High School. And there's also a primary school, St Catherine's Primary School, there. So it is a large site. We've got a sixth form as well. And the site's a new build as well. It replaced the predecessor school was Withins.
That's it. Yeah.
So I've been there since September of last year.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, so you're fairly new there then?
Yeah.
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 Right.
New at that school. Yeah.
And prior
Moved.
to that, you were.
Prior to that, at school in Stockport.
It must be better with the travelling, not having to go to Stockport.
Yeah, I absolutely loved my time in
Yeah.
Stockport. It was spent 4 years there.
It can take you an hour and 20 minutes on a bad day with traffic, can't it?
That's it. The mornings were always fine, providing I left about 6:30 in the morning, which I'm a morning person anyway. I really like getting in at sort of 5 to 7, and that was it. Unfortunately, coming back in the evening at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, there's many a time I've had to completely stop.
Yeah, just pull over and get your tea and
Yeah,
just
exactly.
accept it that you're not
Accept
getting
it for
home
what
in a
it
hurry.
is.
You don't realise that, for instance, 10, 15 years ago, I'd commute to Leeds and you could do it in about 45, 50 minutes. Now it can take you 3 hours because the traffic has increased drastically. The roads haven't improved enough to accommodate the traffic. So I wouldn't work in Leeds anymore. I used to. But what you also don't realise, you think, well, it's only an hour in the morning, an hour at night and stuff. But you add that time up.
Yeah, you had that. Yeah.
Say 2 to 3 hours a day travelling, or an hour and a half each way. And basically, by the end of the week, it's like working another 2 days.
Yeah.
Another 15 hours.
There certainly was that. I mean, I always used to try and make that time as productive as possible.
And what you can do with that time.
Yeah, so I'd listen to podcasts and so on and so on.
I'm audiobooks all over that.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, even so, it's still time spent in a car.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the point I was making earlier about the TV show. One of the things that I used to get quite angry at first, and then I thought, hold on a second, there's a bit of a theme here, I am the problem. I am the traffic. I can't blame the traffic over there and pretend I'm not part of it.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. I like that.
Yeah, I am the traffic. I am the traffic jam.
You are in the traffic. You're part of the traffic, and you're getting annoyed with the traffic.
Of course.
Brilliant.
So I used to reflect on that one quite a lot. But yeah, it's very nice. In fact, it's fantastic actually teaching in my hometown, which I've never done particularly before. Spent a short period of time at another school in Bolton.
You've had to pack the drag show in at the weekends now.
Well, yeah, there's that. You've completely thrown me.
Sorry.
But yeah, it is.
Bolton.
It's nice. It's nice teaching in your hometown. And the kids are fantastic. I see them all the time. In fact, because obviously I spend a lot of time on the streets running through Leverhulme Park and so on and so on.
Yeah. Where we bumped into each other.
Exactly, where we met not that long ago. So it's quite nice seeing kids sort of waving and and they always say nice things as well.
Good.
Which is good.
It's good. I think another life lesson, if you're in traffic, that time I used to get very frustrated, and now if I am travelling, I'm on a long journey, I think, right, what can I do with that time?
Yeah.
And I either listen to pre-recorded radio shows, a podcast, an audiobook, and I've learned to really enjoy that time now. So by choosing, you can't change it, so it's learning to, make the most of it.
Yeah, learning to adapt, learning to, learning to make the most of it. When things finally came to a head with me, I thought, well, my life isn't going to work out in the way in which I'd planned it. And there's that quotation, isn't there, about, you can spend half of your life climbing a ladder only to realise it's leaning against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
And once I'd accepted the fact that things career-wise and everything else were going to look a bit different from what I originally intended, I really did find peace.
Yeah.
And once I became sort of honest with that and say, this was the road I was on, but I've had to take a step back from that, and I'm going to do something slightly different in a different way.
It's a great lesson, I think.
Yeah.
Be rather than they say a branch and it's in the wind and it breaks. It'd be like a reed, and what you have to do is accept the fact that you're set off in one direction. There will always be oscillations and fluctuations. Nothing is going to go exactly like you want it to. But if you're open to change, you're willing to accept things as they are and make decisions as you go along and fresh choices. Life can just be a blissful journey.
Yeah, it can.
Rather than you have a predetermined outcome, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You get stressed, there's resistance in the system, you become tense, and life's an uphill struggle.
Exactly. And those predetermined outcomes, one of the things I've learned, they're all ego, really.
Yeah, exactly.
They really are. They're just misplaced attachments to things. And that really has been a lesson that I've learnt over a long period of time. I had to let go of that, and consequently, I'm in a place now, and that would be my message to anybody else, that regardless of where you are in your life and how you are feeling, whether it is through depression or something else, it does not have to be like that forever. And in fact, regardless of what you do, it will not be like that forever, because the only thing that we can be certain of is that things will change. And whether you take those deliberate steps to try and change your life as much as possible or not really is down to you.
I'm going to just interrupt you there, Marcus, and we're going to have a short break now, and we'll be right back after this. Hello everybody and welcome back, and this is actually part 3 of this show with the very happy Chappy, show number 5, the Midnight McBride show with Marcus Chester. Hello Marcus.
Hello Midnight, very happy to be here again.
Good. I thought with the way this conversation's gone, Marcus, and I haven't talked about some of this stuff for a while, but whenever I used to do meditation classes, retreats, workshops, things, there are certain stories and analogies that I used to use, and I'm going to use a couple now. And one was, life can be either a blissful journey or it can be a struggle. And quite often, it's down to the choices you make. For example, you can be swimming against the current in a stream, swimming against the flow. And as you're doing this, you can use the analogy, it's like universal energy and everything else. And as you're swimming against it, you're spending a lot of energy. Everything's a struggle. It's hard work. And you're making zero progress. You're not moving. The other way, when you embrace life, accept things as the way they are, i.e. move with the current and turn around and go downstream with the universal flow and the current of the river or the stream, you can spend almost no energy, just be sculling like this, and you can be going at 20 miles an hour. So by learning to accept things as they are, which is a lesson you've just been discussing that you learned, it can be a game changer rather than resisting everything. If you resist something without meaning to, you oppose it, but if you're pushing against something, you hold it in place. The force of that is leaning against you and it's draining. When you take away the resistance and you no longer oppose something, it just dissipates, disappears and dissolves. So by taking away the resistance, by not opposing things, by acceptance and learning to go with the flow, shall we say. If you want your life to flow, you have to let it all go. That's another quote from Pills to Peace. And the other analogy I always used is about the external world. And I'm a lot happier now. Now, there's still wars. There's still lots of things in the external world that are going on that were always going on. The difference is I used to judge them. I used to have an opinion, ego-based usually, and I used to resist them. Now, the only difference is I don't let those external events control my inner emotional state. I choose how I feel by being conscious about the decisions I make. And consequently, I'm a lot happier. The external world hasn't changed. The way I relate and react to the external world has. And the final thing I'd say, and I always used to give this analogy, you have two people on the top of a cliff. And one of them is just rolling in ecstasy, looking at the view. You know, beautiful view, hilltops and in bliss. The other is on the hands and knees, holding onto the grass. And they're terrified and traumatized and living in fear. One's in heaven, one's in hell. And the difference between the two is that the thoughts about the external world, they're in the same environment, in the same location, having the same experience. The difference is the thoughts and reactions in relation to the external world. So it's your inner emotional state and your thoughts that create your reality.
Absolutely. I mean, complete agreement. In fact, I can think of some practical ways actually that I've implemented some of those.
Go for it.
Some of those things. Well, one, for example, I actually wrote about this quite a few years ago. I don't listen or watch the news anymore in the morning.
I know people say, don't you want to be informed? But I've stopped. It's negative, and you're told the same story over and over again.
Exactly.
So I'll let you finish, but I'm the same. I haven't watched the news for a very long time now.
I will do, but only when I choose to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, do I feel any less informed? it's weird how you get to find out about the things that matter anyway. You somehow end up seeing something, hearing something, reading about it anyway. But what I don't do is deliberately. I used to listen to a news program every morning.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
No.
It put me in a bad mood.
Yeah, well, it's negative. It's always negative.
Of course it was always negative.
I don't watch the news. However, I can be in a barber's getting a shave and it'll be on a telly.
Yeah.
Or I'm in the gym and they've got screens on the background.
Exactly.
So I
You
am
just pick it
still...
up.
It pervades into my life.
Yeah.
Or I walk past and there's a newspaper on the side and I see the headline.
You see the headline.
I do still pick up some bits of news, but I don't watch the news. I don't watch it anymore because half of it is very negative and you're being programmed and it's propaganda, and the other half is lies. So I don't watch it.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, that's just something very, very simple that I find had a massive effect. Yeah. The other thing about the external world is like things like email, for example. In a previous life, I used to be almost a slave to email. It'd be one of the first things that I did in the morning when I got to work would be to check my email. Yeah. And on the surface of it, you think, well, that's surely part of what it is that you're paid to do. And of course it is. But the problem with doing it first thing in the morning, I soon realised, is that I was reacting to the external world.
Yeah.
So I could have made, on my journey to work, I could have made my plans to do X, Y, and Z with my time. And I knew what my timetable would be and the lessons that I'd have to teach and so on.
Planned your day first and scheduled it.
And then all of a sudden, there might be an email or several that would hijack that.
Yeah.
That would, you need to do this, you need to do this. So that's something else that I don't do anymore first thing in the morning. I wait until much later on in the day.
I tell people, you have an energy field. And if you go back 20, 30 years ago and you were an accountant, you went into work, you did the accounts. Now you go into work, your mobile phone rings, you get a text message, you get an email, your phone pings with social media. This energy field, your concentration and your thoughts are constantly being interrupted. Yeah. And the only way to get round that now and still be connected to all these avenues is to turn the beep off and have an allocated time. You want to look at your Facebook, set aside 30 minutes to do it and do it in your schedule. Yeah. Don't be dictated to by constant beeps and buzzes and interruptions because it's disturbing you.
It is disturbing. And that's something that I have actually turned off on my phone. I do use technology. I'm not anti-technology at all. But I've turned the notifications off. You know, I don't need to be notified every time somebody presses like on something else and have my attention diverted in that way.
I have the notifications on. I just have everything on silent. And I try, unless it's something that I am waiting for instance, if I'm doing one of these shows and I'm waiting for some feedback on something, so I'm aware of that. But unless it's something like that, then I try and just look at the emails, messages and things like that as it's appropriate for me, being in control of that rather than being a slave to it.
Exactly. And that choice about how we react with our external world is something that, you know, we all have. We are programmed and conditioned into thinking that we don't necessarily have that choice, or that we are somehow missing out if we're not constantly connected. But the problem is our attention is sort of doing this all of the time.
Yeah. And it's the little things. It's these conscious decisions and learning how to manage certainly things that are invading your energy field. It's learning how to manage these that can improve your quality of life quite a lot. Yeah. You know, you don't realise how much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Another lesson that I've had to learn the hard way really is I don't need to respond to everybody's points of view about things.
No.
I've certainly, learned that at work.
A quote from the book again is, in order to have world peace, everybody's got invited. The second I say, I'm right and you're wrong, then how are we ever going to have world peace? So you have to be aware of somebody else's opinion. You don't always have to resist it. You don't always have to oppose it. You don't always have to say, this is how I see it. And I try and promote positive and focus on that. Not saying somebody's wrong, but saying, this is what I think is right. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Mother Teresa always said that if you have an anti-war rally, I won't attend. But if you have a peace rally, I'll be there. Pro-peace.
Yeah. That's a nice way of viewing it. I think that's all we can ever do, really, isn't it? Just keep. Certainly, you see that in teaching all of the time. You can't control people, you can't control children, and that's not our job to. Your job is literally to try and be an example, to show people one possible way of doing things, and hope that you can do that with enough enthusiasm and enough conviction to get people to follow your example.
Yeah.
But the one thing that just will not work, because it comes down to the resistance thing you were talking about earlier, is to sort of try and strong arm people into that position.
The way to go through life is not to try and change everybody else. It's to get this right. It's to get this absolutely right. And if everybody did that, we'd all be sorted.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
you only have one job,
Yeah.
and it's to fix this.
Yeah.
It's not to go around shaping the rest of the world and controlling everybody else and telling everybody else what to do.
Yeah.
Get this right. Be in a state of bliss. You do the same. You do the same. And there'll be no war.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that sort of brings it nicely around to how we started off about moving around the country. And you know, one of the things that I've let go of is simply that anger. You know, it's not my job to revisit that. It's just my job to get my head right about all of that.
And I think if you focus on what you're doing and not what everybody else is doing, because if you go around and you see what somebody's doing, you think, well, why are you doing that? That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Instead, I try, and I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I try my best to focus on what I'm doing and try and be a positive light, you know.
Yeah.
And then get other people to say, well, he looks happy, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know, or that's it, it's the example.
Yeah.
Rather than shaping everybody else, be this beacon.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, back in the day, sort of 2012, you know, I wanted people to just to tell me how to solve this, how to sort myself out. And the wisest people that I met in that journey, they didn't tell me how to do anything. They suggested a few things.
Yeah.
But far more important than that, they just showed me.
Yeah.
They just showed me that it could be done.
I say if you elevate yourself, then each time you raise yourself up, invite everybody to come and see the view. Hold a hand, but only they can walk the walk.
Yeah.
Only they can make that journey.
Yeah.
You can show them the way.
Yeah, you
know.
certainly can't force people into it.
If there's a beautiful view, go back and say, you want to come and see this view. It's great.
Yeah.
And then they maybe follow you, and maybe they'll come and have a look. And But you can't drag anybody there, can you?
No. And to me, that's true leadership in that sense of the word, you know, because people will follow you. You know, I reflect an awful lot about things like leadership and setting examples and so on. And to me, that is the very definition of leadership, to try and create an environment where people want to follow your example, rather than maybe a more sort of westernized version of leadership, which is who can shout the loudest, who can be the strongest, who can
how many people you can control.
Yeah, control, coerce, manipulate into
Yeah.
adopting a particular point of view. Anybody that's watching this that's new to teaching, for example, will know that the latter way of doing things just will not work. You know, you can't do that. You know, you can't force people to behave in a particular way, to think a particular thing, to do things in a particular way. All you can ever do is just constantly sort of be that lighthouse, just lighting the path ahead, and showing them a different way of doing things.
Yeah. Do your best to live the best life you can and inspire. You know, Marcus, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's been fantastic to be here.
I've enjoyed this just like I did with the radio, and it's therapy for me too. I love it, you know, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm going to leave this show with a quote from the book which I mentioned earlier, and I think it's relevant with what we talked about on this show today, and it's: to be told something once is to be informed. To be told something again and again is to be conditioned. You are now being programmed. Be very careful what you focus on, and everything you focus on, you feed and move towards it. So be careful what you give your energy to. This has been Midnight McBride on show number 5, the Midnight McBride Show. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn at midnightmcbride.com, on this channel that you can subscribe to, and there'll be a new show out every week. You can also buy my book From Pills to Peace at Amazon and about a dozen other places. You can now listen to From Pills to Peace as an audiobook on Audible, iTunes, Amazon, ACX, and some other places. And book 2, Moving Forward, Learning How to Glide. That is elevating yourself and propelling yourself forward using surrounding energies with zero resistance, with zero effort, in harmony with natural law. And that'll be out in about Hopefully 6 weeks. Hopefully. Thanks for watching. It's been fun. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Some people chip a nail and it's the end of the world.
I know.
There's a lady coming on the next show called Stina Maria, and it nearly brought me to tears hearing her journey. She's been abused, homeless. You can't begin to imagine it. Homeless as a child. And she's completely turned it around. And she was even, a year or so ago, she was going to take her life again because she'd had the trauma and stuff. And I can't begin to tell you. And everybody, it's relative. It's different for everybody, but it doesn't matter what your journey is, but the lessons you learned in this life, the best thing we can do as human beings is go through life, try and figure it out, learn lessons, and then share that with other people. And if we do that, we're doing all right. And you're doing that. Yeah. So it's good.
There we go. As are you.
Yeah, well, trying.
This is a very tangible example of that. Yeah, you're really putting it out there. It's inspirational. I'm going to be honest with you.
Good. Well,
because you've grabbed hold of it and you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, it evolved. It got to a point. All started with sound. I wanted to get some decent sound gear, and then it just evolved. And I sort of just try and listen. The logic sometimes goes out the window. Listen to this inside, how I feel, and I just knew I had to do this, and it feels great. It feels good. I'm passionate about it. I get to talk to people. I think people really benefit from what we're doing, because people that have had, not always struggles, but a lot of people that have had struggles or people that have excelled despite adversity come on here. And I just think it's a great thing to be doing for me as well, because I benefit. Like you were saying, sometimes by helping others, you benefit more than they do. I'm doing this for me because I love doing it, but I also do think that I do think it's a good thing.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, so
it is. It is.
Yeah. It just depends how you define success.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Success is some of the things I've done. Somebody I spoke to last night asked me and said, "So what's the plan? You do this, and then if it's successful, you get advertised and something, and that's all great." But I'd not even thought about that. Yeah. This is completely just passion. There's nothing else. It's never. There's no end game for making money. This was never. If one person watches this and benefits, and we enjoy doing it, we've cracked it.
You've cracked it, yeah.
That's all it's about.
Yeah. Everything else is just ego, really. Yeah. Brilliant.